Carl Pannuzzo. Welcome to Australian Musician. We're here today to talk about Checkerboard Lounge and then the new album, Sun Sessions. First, I wanted to go way back. You started Checkerboard Lounge nearly 30 years ago.
Yeah, a little bit more even, probably 33 and a third. Good time to release a record.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was early days, you know, being teenagers, being very excited about, you know, the fertile music scene in Melbourne and just sort of picking up, you know, being taken under the wing by Tinsley Waterhouse. You know, took us around to all the gigs when we were underage and just got so excited. You know, took us to the best music. You know, Mick O'Connor recently passed. You know, was one of the first. It was the first gig we saw with Tinsley, and you know, he saw us and said, "You guys look a bit underage." And I was like, "Yeah, don't tell anyone." I said, "That's all right. You like gigs?" He's like, "Yeah, this is our first one." Like, okay, I'll take you around. Let your parents know. It's all good.
Well, what was the goal of the band?
That's a great question. There was no goal. It was high ephemera. It really was. We've always improvised a lot, collectively especially, getting into the mode of, you know, traditionally like an old boogie that just can go on, you know, for minutes and be one chord, but feel so good. That's where you want to stay. We were inspired by a lot of the music that we listened to, of course blues, soul stuff as well, anything that was there. You know, the Grateful Dead, also great improvisers, but we didn't necessarily try and emulate any of these things, rather play about in any of the territories we found ourselves and just kind of keep exploring. And so we really did a lot of learning and discovering about music on the fly, you know, at gigs, which was really a lot of fun.
Yeah. That 7-year residency, what did that do for the band?
Well, yeah, we almost don't get a single gig that you don't get someone coming up and saying, "We used to come and see you every Sunday at the GB," and it really was quite huge. There was, you know, especially when it turned into being a death metal pub, and we were still the only kind of chill factor on a Sunday afternoon, because it started originally at 3 o'clock in the evening. And they kept extending their opening hours past 6, past 7, we just sort of kept going until eventually the gig turned into something that went from 5 o'clock till 1 in the morning. And we just kept playing because it was so fun. And I think that was sort of a bit like a mini festival, and people would just turn up and be there, and it was great, the amount of people that really remember that time and shared that discovery with us. It really was, you know, hugely organic in every sense. Yeah, I remember one time opening my eyes. I used to shut my eyes a lot performing, just getting into the music and stuff. I remember opening my eyes once and seeing the whole band away with their eyes shut and getting right into it, and we're all playing. And the whole audience had their eyes shut and they were either moving or dancing or just drifting or whatever. And I felt, don't spoil this moment. I closed my eyes again and just went on, you know. It was lovely.
Yeah, there's been a few famous singing drummers in rock history: Buddy Miles, Levenhelm, Karen Carpenter.
Yeah, great.
How did it happen for you?
Actually, accidentally. The band started in high school, and the piano player was the singer. We weren't a blues band yet; we were just mucking around. But he left. He had other things he wanted to do, and everyone said, "Well, we don't sing. You better sing." And I didn't even think about it. I thought, well, it's just another thing to do. And I listened to a lot of instrumental music as a kid, but I also loved singers like Aretha Franklin and Ray Charles and all the greats, and you know, with so much expression. And I just thought, yeah, that's got to be fun, actually. Why not? And so I just did it and didn't really think twice, because of course, at the time, it wasn't as foreign as it is about now to have a singing drummer. You know, Don Henley and all the contemporaries of the time were there, and so there wasn't anything to say no. And yeah, I love it. I enjoy drumming the most when I'm singing, and I enjoy singing the most when I'm drumming. If I do either of the others, it's a little bit more work rather than real, just full out play. You know, I love it.
Yeah. Have there been drummers that have inspired the way you play?
Oh yeah, definitely. I mean, David Jones is just one of the world's best, not just as a drummer and technically, although yes, but as an energetic force. And, you know, also a lot of my contemporaries, you know, Danny McKenna, just a beautiful drummer. Peter Jones, who was, you know, everything from Diana Kiss to in the jazz scene, so simple. He could play everything, but often really just nailed the one thing. You know, and you know, people like JoJo Smith, you know, she's a fantastic singer, but she's also a drummer, so a singing drummer. And these people really kind of gave me the sense that, you know, this is a musical statement. All the jokes that you get about drummers and singers, actually, they're funny, but there's something hugely indulgent about doing those things. Yeah.
When did you become aware of the music that was coming out of Sun Studios in Memphis?
Probably in my teens. You know, we used to just buy records with any spare money we had, all of us really, as far as I remember. And, you know, just to have your little private listening parties. Often myself and Dan Kerr, the original guitarist, you know, would just stay up all night listening to records and geeking out on exactly what they were putting out. You know, Otis Rush, how beautiful, you know, a voice and a guitarist, and the songwriting, just fantastic. So there was so much to learn and explore. Yeah, I think, you know, obviously people like Johnny Cash and Elvis and all these people are famous enough. They're kind of part of it. But really, when we were exploring the blues, it was your people like Howlin Wolf that really made you think, okay, there's something else going on there. Like, I'm getting goosebumps now just thinking about him. You know, it's another energy. It's not performance. It's not about pop, as it were, fashion or anything, or being, you know, good looking or anything like that. It really was just about, this is how I feel right now, and that's what's going to happen. Which we were lucky to have exactly that experience in Sun ourselves.
Yeah. Just a bit of background about why you were in Memphis. In 2019, you won the Australian Blues Challenge, which allowed you to go to Memphis to compete in the International Blues Challenge in 2020. What was the competition experience like?
It was beautiful, actually. It was it was quite alive and very... everyone was just a little bit excited, not effusively so, but you could get this energy. And it didn't really feel so much like a competition, so much as I guess a festival. There was more a camaraderie. You were meeting people from, you know, there was a great band from the Netherlands and just all sorts of people from around the world. And so it felt a little bit more like just a gathering of like minds. And, you know, there was a lot to be learnt. We went to a couple of great, you know, we went to a Bobby Rush talk, met him, and it was just beautiful and so enlightening seeing someone from that kind of era and that age and experience really talking about music industry. And in some ways, naturally it's a bit competitive, but actually very much more naturally it's not at all competitive. Music is its own force, you know, so we experienced that there. It was really lovely.
Yeah. And because of being in Memphis, you got to record at Sun Studios. How did that actually happen? Was it a matter of just ringing up and booking a studio?
No, actually we were as surprised as anybody. We took a few trips together and did a couple of touristy things, but it wasn't Shannon and Tim who actually went to take the museum of the tours of the museum first. And they were there, and at the end of the tour, Tim sat down at Jerry Lee Lewis's piano, which they let him, which was great, you know, and he was just blown away, and you could see the old cigar burn right out in the bottom of the last note. And he, you know, played amazingly, and he just said, oh, imagine recording here, you know, because you could kind of get the sense of these shitty yellow walls and there's sort of holes in them and everything and all the sweat that would have gone into it. It was a relatively small room, you know. And the guy said, it's still a functioning studio. We've got 5 hours left on Monday night. And we was like, okay, we're going to do that, aren't we? So that was great.
Yeah. So what was the first impression walking into that studio?
Look, it was two things. In one, it was just another room, another shitty studio you've been in, something old enough to look like that. And in another, it was, you almost couldn't fathom, you couldn't conceive of how much music must have gone down in there. And there are pictures on the walls and old records and, you know, all that stuff that you really started to feel the history of it in a way that meant it was really otherworldly. Like, are we really actually here? You know, you're pinching yourself a bit. yeah, it was quite wonderful.
Yeah. So how did you decide upon the songs that you recorded?
Well, we already had an idea to record with an old Hammond player, Dave Boyle, who's got a studio in a church in Texas that he revamped into a studio. And we had a booking with him 3 weeks later to actually record. We'd made that as part of our plan of going over once we knew we were going over. Meet up with him, and it would be great. But COVID was just starting to get in at the time. So this was perfectly, we had to go home early anyway. We weren't going to stick around and maybe be grounded. And so when this arose, that was just fantastic. So we already had in mind a few original tunes that we wanted to get down. But we thought, look, we've only got 5 hours. It might only be a couple of tunes. Luckily, we got 12, mostly all in one take. It was really quite electric and great fun. And we really thought that. We haven't got long. We should just turn up and play like we're playing a gig. So the songs, maybe half arranged, maybe not, we just want to feel into them, just like we would at a gig, to create that sense of life, because it's very hard to get an electricity on a recording. And so, of course, we did it all live. And within that, we just thought, maybe we just feel into the room and the space and just decide what we'd like to play. We ended up actually playing a few covers we'd never played before. We'd never done them before, and we just thought, because the day before we'd been to Al Green's church, which was a fantastic experience, not at all touristy, just a shit little piece of brick in the middle of nowhere in the suburbs, and Al was just amazing. The band were the best musicians we'd seen in the whole time. And it really was something quite overwhelming for us. Like, we were all crying. It was ridiculous. The music and the feeling was so good. And Shannon said, why don't we do a version of Amazing Grace? Not that Al had done that, but he just sort of picked that out. And we thought, okay, yeah, sure. Tampa Red's It Hurts Me Too. We just decided to feel into the kind of roots and the era of the place, not just the studio, but kind of where we were. And they really turned out beautifully. We were so happy with that.
Yeah. Is there a track on the album that's closer to your heart than others?
Look, honestly, I actually think Twice, which is the longest song on the record. I mean, I love long songs. I always have, It's not that it's long. It's just that we let ourselves stretch out. It was the first song that we recorded when we were there, and we thought, let's just ease in with a slow blues, nothing too much. It was an original, but and we all had a sort of hand in it, and so it felt like a good collective way to start. But because it was the first song, and it was immediate, it was the first sounds that we were getting there, and we really didn't make ourselves make it into anything. We didn't curtail the solos to make it album length or anything. We just wanted to play. So we probably were at our freshest in terms of experience. And I think, it just came out beautifully. The sound engineer who'd never heard us before turned a mic on at the end of the take and just said, wow, I thought the gates of hell opened up when the guitar solo started. And because it's amazing, of course. But yeah, really, I think that's my favourite track. There's really something very alive about it. I love it.
Did the sound engineer, did he basically just push on and off, or was he more involved?
No, he basically pushed on and off. I mean, with the old microphones, the really original gear, through the tape delay, all of the original stuff, which gives it such a great sort of feel and sound, they probably had their system, already well plugged in, a basic sound check, and press go. And usually they might adjust things after a track. I'm not sure if he did or not. Still sounded fine to me.
Yeah. So did you use your kit, or did you use gear
No,
that's in the studio?
I used Larry Mullen Jr.'s kit from when you two were there playing with B.B. King. It just happened to be set up, and I didn't take my own kit over. I knew they had one there, and yeah, I might have used, no, I didn't use my own cymbals. I just used what it was there. Again, it was the feeling to say, let's turn up and be here, be present. Capture this reality rather than try and make it into something.
And the other guys, did they use their own instrument?
They used their own, Shannon used his own guitar, and a few of the guitars that were there. There were just guitars that were around. He chose different ones according to different songs, which he knows so well how to do, and a few different amps as well that were there, which is great. I think, did he bring his own amp for one? Anyway, not sure. There was a Hammond organ there. Apparently it was in a fair bit of disrepair, but of course Tim Neal's a genius. He could just play anything, so he did. And yeah, no, basically a lot of the in-house stuff. All right, so current setup, I'm a bit of a Ludwig fan. I like the sort of history of them and the feel, the resonance. I like the way they play. So I've got this one I've had for a lot of years. I just recently invested in a new one without the shell coverings. It's really raw. This beautiful old Ludwig snare, like a marching snare. It's so deep, but it's beautiful and resonant and warm. Very oofy, lovely to play. I like a bit of mongrel around my cymbals. I sort of tend to experiment because I really want things that can be dynamic and expressive. If you can imagine playing behind someone like Shannon Bourne, you want to be able to get from pin drop to complete reckless fury at any attention of his command. So this is the idea. This beautiful Sabian crash. A lovely old Zanky ride, which early guitarist Max Meredith got in the trading post for $50 and gave it to me, which was he just used to record with it. But it's just got a heap of great sounds, and it got stolen at one point, and 15 years later I found it again. I could tell its specific markings, which was great. Some early Zildjian Hi-Hats. I've been exploring a lot of darker colours with some sort of early Zildjian-y kind of things that just don't get made anymore. A lot of new cymbals, just a bit loud and shitty. If you're going to get loud, it's because you want to play to that and get loud because you're playing loud. That's my sort of feeling, rather than just having boof to go there. Anyway, so yeah, that's my kit.
The album had been ready for quite some time, but because of COVID, there were delays. How frustrating was that?
Yeah, look, it was a bit frustrating, and at the same time, the whole thing, we really needed to let it unfold. You know, we didn't know what was going to happen. In part, we were still we were waiting on the mix because we got Dave Boyle, our friend who we were going to record with. He's got one of the original desks from Stax in his studio, so he mixed it on that. But he was waiting to have that repaired, as well as that Texas went really down under, pretty heavily in the winter. So we had to wait for that. But also the idea that we couldn't bring it out into the public and celebrate it in as big a way as we'd want to, with everything locked down, and us being such a live band that we love playing gigs, that we thought, let's just wait and we'll sit on it. And meanwhile, we spent a little bit of lockdown in 2021 making film clips, which was great.
Since the recording, Amos, your longtime bass player, has left. How did you go about finding Zoe, the new bass player?
Look, I've played with Zoe a few times over the years. I've been part of her. She's got a quintet of her own. She's a composer, an amazing composer. I kind of call it Friendly Zappa. She's just a genius, and just a great bass player. There was one night where she sat in with us because I had for the first and only time in my life that I'd lost my voice and I couldn't sing. We had a gig at the Lomond. I invited a bunch of friends to come and sing with us, just so that it wasn't a full instrumental gig that we could have done. Anyway, Amos for some reason was just late and called us 20 minutes before we were supposed to start, just saying, oh man, I'm going to be another hour. I was like, oh, okay, well, let's just see what to do. Now, I looked through the room just at that phone call and into the dining room and saw Adrian Perger there, who is a great singer, and thought to invite him. Went into the room, and of course sitting next to him is his partner Zoe Frater, who's this great bass player. And I said, you don't happen to have your axe in the car, do you? And she said, yeah, I've just come from teaching, yeah. And I said, would you mind? She said, that's fine. So she played the whole first set with us, completely unrehearsed, without any plan, and just beautiful, just so great. And So sadly, and though, when Amos left, we thought, well, there's a bunch of great bass players in the world. Let's try Zoe first because that felt so good that time, and she just slotted in so great. Yeah, such a great musician.
Yeah. Of course, the album is out now, but you've got a launch in April. Tell me about that.
Yep, Thornbury Theatre, April the 1st, April Fool's Day. I don't mind playing the fool. And yeah, Sarah Carroll's going to open up for us. She's top of the vibes, and so we're really happy to be celebrating the album. We might play one of the film clips on the screen. We did that last year at the Memo with a preview of the album, because things were, again, because of COVID, the manufacturing hadn't come back from vinyl yet. So what was going to be a launch last year turned out to just be an album preview. But yeah, looking forward to the Thornbury Theatre. It's a beautiful room and a lot of space and a lot of people, and hopefully they don't have to be limited by numbers now too.
Yeah. So what does the future hold for Checkerboard Lounge?
Well, we already had to turn down the Blue Mountains Festival, which is happening in a couple of weeks' time, because a lot of festivals still are only just getting themselves back together because they're allowed to. So they're only just getting their set list together, their band list, and we already had a gig booked for that weekend. So they said, well, we'll have you the following year. And so there's quite a lot of activity, same with the Bendigo, Byron Bay Blues and Roots, you know, things like that. We just don't know what's ahead, except that we know that we want to keep making music, keep making more records. We actually thought we'd love to go back to the International Blues Competition, and while we were there, maybe we should hit up another famous studio, Muscle Shoals or something like that, and actually, you know, have a creative experience that we love to have playing music together, but in different environments, and maybe see what the inspiration is at different places, you know.
Yeah. Well, Carl Pannuzzo, thanks for joining us.
Thanks very much, Greg.